So it was quite of an adjustment from coming from Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Oh my, Detroit is just a tough town. And I guess I wasn't accustomed to that, the harshness of the different. Cedar Rapids was more of a country town, and Detroit, was big city, everybody for themselves type of thing, and that was an adjustment for me, but I made it, I adjusted to it, and so we lived there for a couple of years, and then we moved over onto Phillip Avenue, which was a bigger house, a nicer house, and we moved next to a lawyer. I remember asking the lawyer, I said, well, how can you defend a guy that's a crook, or something like that? And he says, well, that's my job, everybody is entitled to, be defended and so I accepted that, and we lived there on Phillip Avenue for several years, and it was a flat, so that you had neighbors upstairs and we were downstairs, and you could sometimes hear them walking around up there and everything, but eventually Mama, she didn't she always told me, she said, Harvey Jr., your daddy is going to be a very successful man. And, that got a hold of me. I thought, well, Mama said it, it's got to be true, And sure enough, we moved from Phillip Avenue to Somerset, where it was 1943, I think it was. We moved there, and they were just starting to build houses again. The war was winding down. It was 43, 44, and the war was winding down, so you could buy things again. You could buy, construction material and everything. And so I do remember we moved into our beautiful home on Somerset Avenue there in Detroit, and when we moved in, I ran upstairs, and there was my bedroom, and I had my own bedroom, and I remember it was beautiful, brand new. It smelled so new, and the doorknobs were brass and shiny, and
so that was a brand new house.
It was a brand new house, yeah. Well, I lived there until I went into the Army.
So you went.
And so from Southeastern High School is when I don't know, I was, I think I disappointed my dad because I quit high school in the 10th grade.
Oh, I didn't really.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got your GED then.
And I got my GED in the Army. Army paid for it, I guess. And I was in the Army, and when I got out, I was in the artillery. I was on a 155 howitzer, and I was a fuse setter at that time. And we did what they call the cannonier's hop. You did certain things around before you fired the shell. And I really hated it at the time, but as I look back, I had a lot of fun, because the war was ending, and so I didn't have to worry about getting shot at or something like that.
1949, right?
Yeah. And
Korea had not started then.
The Korean War started in June of 1950. And I joined the Army January the 10th, I think it was. That's what my enlistment was. And I had signed up originally, I was tentatively signed up for 2 years, but I changed my mind because Truman said you could join for 1 year active duty, and then you would have to spend 6 years in the reserve and be subject to call at any time. So I said, well, I guess I'll take that. I was, wasn't sure. I wanted to sign up for 2 or 3 years, So I remember at the induction center, my dad drove me over there because the train was going to leave for Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky, where we were to get our basic training. And so I kissed my mom and shook my dad's hand, and he dropped me off there. And at midnight, the train pulled out, and we had the whole car was
Full of Army guys.
full of all these guys that were
You were leaving from Detroit.
leaving from Detroit, right? And
Night train.
mm-hmm. And that train, I remember, boy, those guys, somebody had whiskey, and oh God, I wasn't accustomed to that kind of atmosphere. And I remember I went into the bathroom there, and there was a guy passed out on the commode, and he had vomited all over the floor. Oh, I thought, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into here, I thought. And we pulled into, we really went through Cincinnati, I think, and then we caught another train to go to Camp Breckenridge. And when we got there, it was fairly early. It was in the morning, and there was like a corporal there, regular Army corporal or something, and he even had his girlfriend with him to meet us at the train. And he was the bus driver, and he had this bus that we all piled into, and he drove us from there to Camp Breckenridge. And I remember, boy, I'll tell you, Harvey, you got yourself into this. Now you got to stick it out, You can't desert. So I told myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick this out. And so we arrived, and they shuttled us into this building, and there was a long counter, and they had uniforms, pieces of the uniforms stacked up. And they were the thing that disturbed me was why they were so mean to us. These guys that they're just soldiers themselves, handing us up our uniforms, and some guy with a tape measure, he would measure us, and he'd say, size 29 waist, length 29, okay. And they'd slap this clothes down on us, and by the time you got through this, sort of like a conveyor counter, you had all your clothes piled up, in a stack, and you had to carry them, and you had to change into them. Well, man, they didn't fit very well at all. I thought, how am I going to be stuck with a uniform that don't fit me? And here I am. But eventually got it cut down, tailored. So I think I looked pretty good, after that. But we got to the barracks, and the bedrolls were all rolled up already, and all was the springs and you got the mattress was rolled up, and you had all your stuff. You had your blankets, you had your uniform, and your shirts and everything, you know. And I thought, boy, I made a mistake, you know. I should have waited until I was drafted, you know. See, I volunteered, and I thought, wow, I made a mistake, you know. But anyway, we had to make a sergeant came in and he showed us how to make our beds. I didn't know how to make a bed, you know, and he showed us how to fold it a certain way and tuck it in, and he said you can make this bunk so that it's almost like you're in a cocoon, you know, so that when you get up in the morning you can slide out and you don't have too much to make. You just pull it together, and you had to make it pretty the blankets so that they could take like a quarter and drop it onto the bed, and if it bounced, you were okay. But if it didn't bounce, you know, he'd just tear it all up, say make it again, you know. And I remember telling another fellow, I said, why are they so mean to us, you know? That was, you know, they'd shout at you, but you know, it was making you getting you to a point where when they told you they want you to jump this high, you know, you would jump right away, you know. And that was becoming a soldier there. And I remember it was in January, and at that time the weather was pretty nice, but boy, it got cold, and wouldn't you know it, when it came time to spend a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks, I think, or it might have been just a week, but out on bivouac, and wouldn't you know, it got cold. It was so cold, and you appreciated a pup tent with your buddy because you kept each other warm. But when I woke up in the morning, there was that much snow, about 3-4 inches of snow, and it had frozen on top of the canvas of the pup tent. And I thought, my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to make it out here. But the weather kind of cleared up, and when it came time to leave that bivouac area, I think we were out there supposed to be out there a week, but I think they cut it short because it got so cold and wet and everything, but I'm not quite sure about that. But anyway, I do remember that when we had to leave camp, well, they lined us up, and they were going to march back. It was a 22-mile march back to camp, and I remember, oh golly, I hope I could pass this inspection. And we had to fold up our shelter half and then break it down into like a U shape so that you could put it over your backpack, like a horseshoe over your backpack. And we were lined up, and they would have us like you step 2 paces forward so there was enough room for the officer to walk behind you and check your gear. And mine, I could not fold that. I rolled it up, and there was ice and snow rolled up just like a jelly roll inside that thing. And one end of it I couldn't get it broke down to break over my what do you call it? Haversack, or anyway. It was on my back, and there it was, like L-shaped, sticking out. I just couldn't. I could break one side down, but I couldn't break the other side down because of the ice and snow. And that guy walked behind me, and I felt him punch my back. And I was selected to stay there, not march back, because marching, you'd warm up. But if you had to stay in this miserable, dirty camp, I just thought, oh, that's going to be terrible. But it worked out fine because we got the ride back. And by the time we got the camp cleared up and cleaned up, but I do remember it had rained and thawed out, and we had a big latrine dug with boxed toilet seats all the way across. It was just one right after another, and I didn't go to the bathroom the whole time out there. I don't think. I couldn't go. But anyway, we cleaned up the area, and when it thawed out, we had to take shovels and the excess dirt from laying there. It was hardened up, and it was hard to get it up on your shovel. And then I had to stand back and pitch it into there because the darn hole where there might have been 100 guys that done their business in that big long latrine, and it splashed all over me, up and down, and I thought, oh my goodness, whew, man. But fortunately, when we got it all cleaned up, we got the ride back, 22 miles back. The other guys, when we got back to the guys were still just got there, and they were in there, and they were scrubbing their stuff, their equipment down, and boy, I'll tell you that I was learning to be a soldier, I guess, just taken by lumps. And finally we got to bed. Probably it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, well, maybe they'll let us sleep in the morning, Shoot, man, 4:30 in the morning. Hey, get up, Guy came in, turned on the lights, and anybody didn't get out of the bed, they just tip the bed over, jump you out on the floor, But I jumped up, and I thought, I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do, because I don't want to get in any trouble. And they talked about, KP duty. And I said, what's that? Well, that's kitchen police. Kitchen police, well, what's that? They get you up earlier than everybody else to get over to the mess hall, and you were, not at that time, you remember guys peeling potatoes, but they had automatic potato peelers, so that we didn't have to do that. But I never know, we had to scrub these big kettles, and it was nasty work, I'll tell you. But it was just learning to be a soldier and taking your knocks. You had to do it. And it got so, I remember I felt myself changing, because whatever they told me to do, man, I was doing it. I did it, There was no hesitation, Like I said, if they told jump this high, I tried to do it, And and we were in basic training for, I think it was 7 or 8 weeks. It was a kind of a speed up program, I guess, at that time. And Mom and Dad came down and visited. And I was sort of embarrassed because they were in this guest house, and they had us marching by that guest house. It was just barely dawn, you know. And our mom told my dad, she said, I hear the troops marching out there. And he said, well, it's raining. They're not out there marching. But shoot, there we were, marching in the rain, the cold. Hup, troop, 3, 4, you know. And
So did you actually see them then?
yeah,
Later in the day?
yeah. They the captain invited them for dinner that night,
Okay.
and so they sat up at the captain's table, and the captain called me up in front of all those guys. There was 200 guys in there. I didn't want that, you know. But my parents, they were my mom and dad, you know. I was glad to see them.